Hello and welcome back to Money with Mac and G. My name is Ben Jones. Don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like the podcast. And today we have a very special couple who is here with us to talk a little bit today about money. We're talking about Mr. and Mrs. Wilhite. And we have Dave and Sherry here. How you doing, Dave?
Great.
Dave is full of lots of words, but we're trying to get a little wine into him, and we're going to go ahead and move around. Sherry, how about you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Is it a little weird being here, coming down into the basement? You're like, oh my gosh, are they going to come down here and do something really bad, or is it okay?
And murder us?
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but yes. But it's okay, yes. Right? Cool.
It's a little weird, but...
It's a little bit different. We're nice and
good.
Tight today. I was hoping that it was going to be nice and cool in here, and I've got the fan on that's like sucking out the bad air and putting in the good air. And Tony, you're here. Are you going to say hello?
Hello. They haven't found any of the bodies yet, by the way.
This is a golf course. So what kind of bodies are on a golf course?
Bodies of water?
Bodies of water. Hey, that's good. Well, we usually start off with just a little bit of background. Now, Dave and I met over, what are you looking for, Tony?
Where's the fishbowl?
Oh, we don't have the fishbowl. I'd have to run out and get it and ask the crazy question. Like, what's the craziest food you've ever eaten, Dave?
Oh, the first thing that comes to mind was a pasta with squid ink.
Squid ink. Yeah. That's isn't it the dark colored pasta? Yeah. Then it blackens your teeth and everything like that?
Yes, for sure. It was good, though.
It was? Good.
Yeah, it was very good.
You didn't start acting weird, start crawling all over the...
I don't know. Maybe ask
You're
her.
good.
I don't think I was with you.
You were not.
No.
Uh-oh.
Ask somebody else.
Ask somebody else.
Business trip.
It's a BCW moment before current wife.
No, it's just a business dinner.
Well, the thing is that Dave and I met in the business world. We were trying to do a deal together. It didn't work out, but we became friends, and it was great to have somebody down here to go ahead and talk just a little bit about some things. And I asked Dave an interesting question. I said, hey, how do you teach your kids about money? And his eyes a little bit rolled back in his head. And he said, well, my background's a little bit different. He went on to explain what that was, and my eyes lit up. He said, but my wife had a completely different upbringing. And when I heard what that was all about, I thought it was quite fascinating. And that's why Dave is here today, because I think you might enjoy some of this background story and what has happened. And we told them, because Sherry's looking at me, she's like giving me the stink eye. She's like, oh my gosh, how much we're going to have to actually tell today. But we'll go into that, and maybe Tony wants to say something. Maybe you could just give us a little bit of background on some of the stuff that we were talking about.
Yeah, sure.
And how you learned a little bit about money.
Right. So, do you want me to tell?
You can just tell your background, how you got accustomed to money, and where you kind of started out. Were you in a big town, little town?
Sure.
Lots of brothers, sisters.
Yeah. So I grew up in a small farming town in Northwest Indiana, just south of Valparaiso. And so my dad is a pastor of a small church, about 100 people.
Don't they say pastors' kids are the
best?
The best place to get weed.
Yeah.
Also known as PK.
Wait, that's a kid's name. We're going to edit that out.
Free kids, PK. Okay.
It's a kid's show.
No, you're right. Yeah, pastors' kids don't always have the best reputation.
Yes.
But, yeah, so I grew up with an older brother and a younger sister. And so we're in a small town. The town had about 2,000 people, no stoplights, like one flashing red. So a rural town, farming town, and a small, rural church.
How big was your church?
It's about 100, maybe 120 on a good day.
Okay.
So,
did you have a competitive church in the area?
Oh, there are lots of churches, Okay.
Competing for all 4,000 people?
Yeah, 2,000.
2,000,
yeah,
okay.
Right. There were like 10 churches in the town.
Wow, okay.
And so, yeah, it's very small town America,
Gotcha.
So what comes with that, my dad had a small town pastor's salary, you know, and we lived in a parsonage.
So 250,000?
Yeah. You got the ballpark.
And the parsonage,
Yeah.
for people who don't know, because I was like, okay, I think I know what you mean. We call that a rectory in Catholicism
Sure.
or Catholic. So the parsonage he gets kind of free room and board.
There's a house right next to the church.
Yep.
It's a good size ranch that the church owned. And so we lived in that ranch, you know, ranch house for my entire life, you know, or the better part of my childhood, I should say.
Because he was there how many years again?
About 23 years.
23 years. So that's definitely, and were you quote unquote born when you lived there?
I was, I think, 4 when we moved there.
Okay. So that's pretty much all you knew.
Pretty much all I knew. Yeah.
Okay.
And
your wife's upbringing was completely different. So we'll get back to that.
Yeah. No. Yeah. So,
I'm going to jump in here. The church would also pay for the expenses of electricity, water, all of that. So a pastor's salary is maybe even a little bit less because there's none of those.
So they take care of do they take care of your car too, or
no?
So you got your car.
Wait. Oh, it was a rural town, so you're talking about a horse and a buggy, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's right.
They do reimburse gas.
Gas.
Like
Mileage.
if you're driving for your job.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So my dad's church, there was an allowance for utilities, but it didn't cover all of the utilities. That was a super inefficient house, and it didn't actually cover
everything was going
everything.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, yeah, you know, kind of rooming at least a portion of board, right, was covered. But the flip side of that is the salary was pretty low. Right? So when it comes to finances, you know, my dad had grown up in just a situation in what he was taught. You know, they use debt as a vehicle to
get a vehicle.
Things. Yeah, exactly. I mean, so that was one thing. You know, when we get to Sherry's upbringing, that was very different. Our cars versus her family's cars.
And did your dad teach you about budgets? Did he teach you about, hey, you need to save? You know, did he teach you, hey, investing in the stock market?
No.
I'm kind of joking a little bit because you and I have talked about it. But.
Yeah. So, you know, as a kid, you hear things. So I would say there wasn't financial education It wasn't like a deliberate thing that they were trying to teach us. I would maybe step back and say my dad absolutely valued working hard. Like he taught us, you know, we were always going to work hard. And so when a car broke down, we would fix it. And I hated that, right, as a kid. You know, I hated working on the cars because mostly I held the light while my dad fixed the car.
You're in my light.
Right.
Get out of it. Hold it higher.
Right.
Oh, my gosh. I'm having flashbacks.
I know.
Right. So, you know, he definitely taught, I keep saying my dad, but my parents together taught the value of working hard. And, but the flip side on that was, you know, there was definitely the conversation, the feeling in the house that we didn't have extra money. So when I needed a pair of basketball shoes, there was a little bit of guilt asking my parents for money to get shoes because there was just a kind of...
You want to hear a crazy story? Go ahead.
I'm looking at Ben because I wasn't raised with religion. Then I married a sister who's Catholic, and I got introduced to the Catholic mentality. And then I started feeling guilty all the time. I just
right.
Well, for me, I wanted wrestling shoes, and my brother had bought a pair of shoes that he'd grown out of very quickly, so they were brand new, and so they were basketball shoes. So my mom gave me basketball shoes for wrestling. And if you know anything about basketball and wrestling, basketball is to support your ankle. Wrestling is to make it easy so your ankle can move. So. Fast forward, literally, about 7 years later, we were at IU. Somebody was talking and said, gosh, there was this like really good wrestler at St. Matthew's, and he had the stupidest shoes that were these red ponies. And my brother was like about ready to lose it. He was laughing so hard, Brian. Yes. And he was like, that's you. So you talk about money. Well, I had a pretty good idea that we didn't have much money when we were growing up.
And that was kind of just the context of things. It was like asking for that. You knew that it was kind of a,
it's
paycheck
long
to
shot,
paycheck.
paycheck to paycheck, yeah.
Was how we were living.
And you bought everything on credit. So your parents probably had credit card debt, probably had loans on your car.
Yep.
Didn't own a house, right? You didn't have any assets.
Mm-hmm.
And so is this the point we switch over to Miss Sherry?
So maybe I add one thing. We did have a boat. We had a ski boat, and that was our vacation,
Wow.
So that was...
well, you can borrow money. You can get a loan to get a ski boat.
Well, right. And that's the thing. Everything, you could do that on credit. You could get a loan. It was maybe harder to get a loan to go to Disney World, right?
Siphon gas out of the car to fill the boat.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you know?
I drove 200
it was
more miles.
expensive. Yeah. Right.
Do you know what's really funny? I'd read some articles that said that when it comes to defaulting on things, the last thing people will default on is their boat.
Really?
Yes, because they're just like, I ain't giving up my boat.
Yeah.
And so that's pretty funny. So you bought a boat on credit. Go ahead.
Right. So that was just the again the culture that we knew growing up was when it's time to get a new car, you would finance it, and if you wanted a boat, you would fill out the credit application, see what your monthly payment would be,
and go for it.
Figure out if you could afford it. And so that was just how things operated in our family.
So then we moved to Sherry. Are you still there, Sherry? You still awake? You probably heard that story 100 times, right?
Yes.
So you had a very different, like your dad was like a high-end marketing guy, is that right?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
No, he was, so Dave and I have very similar backgrounds, but what we were taught is so different. So my dad is also a pastor, and I have...
Small town,
smaller.
Whoa,
than,
no way.
Where Dave lives.
Actually quite a bit smaller.
Yeah, so...
There's a hierarchy in the small town.
Not that we're competing, but way smaller.
Like shockingly small.
So like what, a 500 or something? I don't know.
Yes, so the first church that my dad was a pastor at, he was at for 13 years, and it was about 500 people. And we were pretty much like bused to the bigger town city to go to school. So it was like an hour bus ride to get to
each
school.
way.
Uphill both ways.
Yes.
Snow, no shoes,
Uphill.
right?
It was in Michigan, so definitely in the snow.
Yes, definitely.
Man.
And then the second church that he went to was during my high school years. And that was maybe 1,500 people, I would say. In my high school, there was a total of 100 kids, 9th to 12th.
Wow.
So I graduated with 23 kids in my public school.
Carry the one. 23. Okay, got it.
Got it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
So I thought I went to a small school with 50 to 60 in my graduating class.
Right.
And then I met her, and she's like, oh, that's like 3 times my class.
So you fell in love with the big city boy.
That's right. Who had a boat.
That's right.
He did eventually move me to San Diego. So that was a bonus.
Oh, cha-ching.
Okay.
How
That's
did you
really inexpensive.
deal with that? Yeah, it's like everything goes on credit then.
Right.
So you're going and you're in this place. What's the name of your town, by the way?
I grew up in Freeport, Michigan, and then we moved to Ashley, Michigan.
Don't really know.
You've never
Is that
heard
the
of
Freeport?
those?
Yeah.
That's Freeport from Freeport, McMoran.
Sure.
Yeah. So you're coming from the small town. It's what do you call a fraction of his small town. Parents are a pastor, probably getting paid less money, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're not comparing. I mean, I don't know, but probably.
I would say less at that time. There was maybe at the most like 100 people at this church. And then, I mean, it has 500 people right in the town. So like at some point, there was maybe 20 people, and it got like really rough, for all of us. Yeah. I mean, that's my dad's job. That's like our family and friends group, and to see that was really difficult.
So what happened with the money part of it? So you're earning less money, your parents, because I'm assuming, which I'm not trying to, but your mom didn't work?
She did not work at the time. She had her teaching degree.
Okay.
And she had taught for a few years. My brother was younger. I have an older brother who's 4 years older.
Okay. So now we're kind of getting laid out. You had probably less money. And did you learn everything went on credit? You just borrowed? You went to Disney World, ski boats, gold trinkets? What?
No Disney World, no boats, no trinkets. We also lived in a parsonage.
Okay.
So my parents didn't have to pay for that. And the church did pay for all the utilities.
Okay.
They didn't just give an allowance, to my knowledge. But my parents never had they never bought anything on credit. They only paid cash.
The Dave Ramsey
for
School
every single thing that they wanted or needed.
Did they have a credit card?
They did not. They did not get a credit card until I was out of college. So that
was it the devil's work, the credit card? We could say that on this show because stay away from the credit card, the bad debt.
So the first and only credit card that they were able to get at that point, I mean, they were
because they had no credit,
50.
Right? Because they didn't borrow anything, no credit.
Right. They didn't have any loans in their cars. They didn't have a mortgage. I mean,
they got no way to pay it back. Why would they give them a credit card?
So, do you know
well, they didn't want it. That was part of. They absolutely did not want a debt.
So did you know their credit score? Did they have a credit score?
I don't know that.
Because I'm curious. Was it like 300 or like 400
right.
You know?
It was probably something crazy like 800.
You should. I don't know. Are your parents still alive?
They are.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know if you could like ask them or if they would feel comfortable, but I think that would be fascinating. Yeah. You haven't done it in like 20, 30 years, whatever it is, 40 years.
Yes.
And then they get a credit card. It's like, what is your credit score, Dad? You know?
Yeah.
Because we're just trying to enlighten people. It's not the best to not have credit, but it's different, right, Dave?
Right.
All credit versus no credit.
I mean, to the point, like her parents were rejected for like a Kohl's card or something like that. And that was one of the moments where they're like, I think we need to establish a baseline of credit.
I mean, everybody wants their Kohl's cash.
Right.
Yeah.
Amen. You just don't want to be throwing that away.
Right.
So I graduated college in 2001.
Okay.
So this is like the early 2000s that my parents are starting to realize things are moving in a different direction, and they have nothing to their name.
So how did they afford you going to school? Did you take a lot of debt? Not to get too personal, but if you say, hey, well, okay, well, let's talk about something else, that's fine.
No.
Or did you get scholarships or, you know?
Well, my grandparents, my dad's, well, both sets of grandparents were really good managing money. They saved a lot. And so...
And they told both their children, no credit.
Yeah.
Look at what we have now.
Yes. And so both my grandfathers, they put away money for all the grandkids. And so...
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Like,
how powerful is that, and how satisfying it was probably to them to be able to do that and to see you succeed, because I don't know you. I've known you, for 8 minutes now?
Maybe 13.
But you seem like you're pretty darn responsible in that you would follow through with college and kind of move that forward. So that's cool. So they put away money and now you're going to college.
Yeah. And I ended up, we went to a private school in Michigan, and I think maybe it was like 25.
So it's kind of expensive
a year, and
back then.
I only paid for 1 year of college on my own. So because my grandfathers had saved money.
Because of the philosophy of respecting, hopefully this doesn't sound bad, respecting the money, saving the money, having it grow for you, because we're really trying to get that home.
Yeah.
So, okay, I think I might.
And also having a vision for futures, not just
about you,
my dad's or my parents' futures, but they're, the grandkids' futures. and to
Absolutely.
plan.
Now I'm getting all excited now because we've had this conversation about multi-generational wealth.
Yeah.
Like how do you make money so not only your children but your grandchildren and the next generation after that have some sort of advantage?
Springboard.
Yeah.
And so here's the crazy part. I'm looking at Dave. He's kind of eyeballing me. How the heck did the two of you get together? Do you guys go to like a what do you call it, a pastor's summit for their kids? And
They call it therapy.
A PK.
a
PK retreat.
Yeah, a PK retreat. And there's lots of therapy there.
No, we met in college. I was 1 year ahead of her.
So the same private school?
Same school.
Are you allowed to mention it?
Sure.
Yes, Spring Arbor University.
I never heard of it.
Spring Arbor College at the time.
Yep.
Still around?
It is in Jackson, Michigan.
Okay.
Think of Indiana Wesleyan or Taylor University.
Yeah,
here.
we know that.
It's same just in Michigan.
Gotcha.
So,
It's technically a free Methodist college.
Okay.
But they charge for it. That doesn't make sense.
Yes. If it's free.
So that was one of
lot.
the kind of requirements I had as a pastor's kid was to go to a Christian college.
Gotcha.
And so I chose Spring Arbor. I didn't want to go to the same place as my brother.
Right.
And kind of wanted to not be John's brother for a while, or be known as John's brother. Right?
I don't want to be Lori's sister. No, brother. Lori's brother.
We call you Lori's sister quite often. It's only when he starts crying.
Yeah, I know. It's a little messy. So you chose to go to Spring Arbor?
So I chose Spring Arbor. I got a little bit of a scholarship to run.
To run?
Yeah.
Okay. That's new.
Did you have the right kind of shoes for running, though? I heard shoes are important in sports.
Yeah.
We were talking to
By the time
somebody.
you got to college.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking to Ben Pigeon, and he was just like, "Oh yeah, I was an NCAA champ in ballroom dancing." And I was like, "What?"
Wow.
I know.
Wow.
Well, he had the right shoes for that.
Yes, he did. So, so you got some running money. You went there, and
academic scholarship, and
good.
I still graduated with quite a bit of college debt.
Okay.
But you were comfortable with debt, though, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean,
you didn't know any different.
I didn't know any different. And
we're trying to break the cycle a little bit. It's like, hey, understand the decisions. You can graduate with debt, but you just need to understand the ramifications.
That's right. And I did not.
You were always used to paying monthly bills.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what you saw your parents doing.
Right. It was a monthly
minimum.
So a longer term.
I had a close friend in Chicago, and if he's listening, he was a lawyer, and he said that his parents, I'm not saying your parents, that this is what you're thinking, but his parents did him a great disservice by pushing him towards a private school where his debt load was substantially more, and going to law school, that he would have gladly, if he knew better, would have never chosen that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this was at a time when things were
different.
And the price difference was really starting to separate between a public institution and in-state tuition versus a private school. But it was also just, from a priority standpoint, it was a high priority to my parents for me to go to a Christian school.
Right. Can you grab your mic just a little bit and pull no, just adjust it down. There you go.
Yeah.
So it's the Christian.
So did your parents go to college?
They did. They met in college. My dad went to a small Christian college in Ohio.
Called Cedarville.
Cedarville. He was, he knew he was going to be a pastor. That was what he felt called to. And so
the
expectation, that's what we
yeah.
So it's really
generational.
That's what I was going to say. It's being passed down, and passing down not only that, hey, you're going to be a pastor and go to a private Christian school,
right?
But you're going to learn these other things, and I'm not trying to pick a scab, but you're going to learn these other things about money too that I'm going to pass down to you as well.
That's right.
And so you don't really question that, right? I did the same thing. Yeah. My parents said, my mom mostly, you're going to go to a public school. It's going to be in Indiana. Don't ask again. And by the way, you get 5 choices: doctor, lawyer, engineer, nurse, or CPA.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh, and by the way, we're going to pay for your college, and then when you're done, you're going to pay us back.
Ah.
Yes.
Because I married into that debt.
And
No, I'm not bitter.
Right.
And then when they sit you down, it's really funny because I always equate it to, I got the book. I'm opening your book, and this is what you owe us. And it's just like, oh my God.
We get the
I know your
photocopy
parents.
handwritten ledger every year to make sure we reconcile the balance of how much Lori and I owed your parents. And at one point, there was an entry in there for $100 charge, addition to the debt. I'm like, what's that for, Wayne? Well, we've got a life insurance policy on her in case she dies before she pays us, and that's how much it costs per year. I go, I got insurance on her. You can take that off. Yeah. I don't want to buy that each year anymore.
So it's just weird the things you learn, right?
It is. Yeah.
And you think they're normal, and maybe
right.
they are, but the thing is like I just keep saying, okay, guys, you don't have to take out a ton of debt. Let's do some things different. And that's what we're talking about.
Right. And so back to your question about how we met, so we met at college and
you sit next to her in religions class?
No, I don't actually remember.
You don't remember
how we
met.
Whoa. Okay.
Specifically.
Let me take a guess. It was the Enchantment Under the Sea dance.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, performed by Dave.
Right. No.
You sure it wasn't Jesus and money?
We met by friend,
Just
through friends.
mutual friends. I mean, it was a
mutual
small
friends.
college.
Yeah. Our roommates had known each other, and it's a small college, like 1,000
Yeah.
or 800.
No, more than 1,000, I would say.
Wow, it's about the size of your
Right.
hometown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy cow, look at all the people over here.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you pretty much knew everybody
Sure.
on campus, which was fun. It was a fun experience to know everybody. So I knew Dave, he's a year older than me, and his friends, and my friends were friends with his friends, and we just started hanging out.
So you get this great relationship started, right? Because you meet this lady that has similar, ideas as you,
right.
because you're at, what do you call it? A Christian college, smaller, embracing that. And you guys make the connection. And I don't know if we jump to getting married unless there's something that's interesting.
No, we can't talk about that. It's a kid's show.
Okay. But I want to get to the point where you're just hey, we're great together. And oh my gosh, hey, let's buy this on credit.
Right.
And you're just like, what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah. So I know I told you when we were talking about this story, I don't remember what we were doing. We were driving. We had a Ford Explorer at the time, and we were driving.
That we had a loan for.
Yep.
She's not bitter, though.
Oh my gosh, you should see her face. I hope they put that face on because she was like,
Yeah.
I told you I didn't want to borrow money for this. And now you're stopped on the side of the road to fix it.
Actually, I did marry into that.
Yeah,
Because he
I had
bought
bought that
at an
before.
auction with his dad.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I got to tell you a story. So my brother, Bryant, he's like, I'm going to buy her the biggest ring ever. You know why? And I go, well, why? He goes, because I'm going to put that on credit. And the day after we get married, it's all half hers, baby.
That's funny.
We're going to have to edit that out.
We're not. We're sending that one to Bri. So anyway, so you married into that. So he already had the loan.
Right. And so I got a job, after I graduated and she had one more year of college, I got a good job at what was pharmacy in Upjohn at the time in Kalamazoo. I was a medicinal chemist. And
because your background, is it chemistry or biology? I can't remember. Okay,
chemistry. Yeah. So, I had a good job and I got,
good benefits, good cash, good
tons of credit.
Right.
Yes.
So
if you're making that kind of money.
You can buy this Mercedes,
right.
8,000.
I did not get a Mercedes, but I got a nice Ford Explorer, and a 2-bedroom apartment for some reason rather than a 1-bedroom,
To put all your stuff you're going to buy on credit and store it in the other bedroom. I like it.
And
what were those liquid TVs? What were they called?
Plasma?
Plasma. You had a plasma TV back then.
Right.
I thought you were talking about the moon lamp.
No. Those are cool too. Bow, chicka, bow, bow. Go ahead.
So,
oh boy.
But yeah, so after she graduated, we got married. So we were fairly young, very
We were
young.
22 and 23.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm 35 over here.
Yeah.
I had to get a little crazy. Go ahead.
So
it took him a long time to find somebody that would marry him.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing against Christy. Christy's great.
Christy's coming
that sounded
down.
bad, didn't it?
She doesn't listen to the
You might need
podcast
to
as much
edit
as
that
she
out.
should. So.
Yeah, we're going to edit that whole
No, we're not.
section. No, we're not.
So you're in a good place. 2-bedroom, got married, you have this car, nice car, good job, benefits.
You had the apartment before we got married.
Mm-hmm.
So this was a bachelor, engaged, but 2-bedroom.
Bachelor pad, yeah, got it.
Nice, Explorer, like fully furnished apartment.
You know what it was? It's like parents coming to visit. You're there by some chance, but you get to sleep in the other bedroom.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there we go.
I know that program.
Yeah. There's definitely that. So
I'll save you a seat. Go ahead.
So anyway, I remember this conversation. We were driving somewhere, and the issue of credit came up, and I don't remember.
So early on. So we're not talking like 10 years in. You're talking maybe the first year, maybe?
Right.
Okay.
Just before or just after we were married. I don't remember which.
Okay.
Do you remember?
She's fuming
No,
over
I'm
here.
not really sure.
I can't believe you can't remember the date.
Yeah.
It was December 17th.
Right.
It was right before.
At 7:02 p.m. and 30 seconds.
We had just passed the 131 mile marker.
Right. Yeah. We were driving, and we start talking about money and credit, and she's like, yeah, no more credit. We got to stop buying.
Did you slam on the brakes?
And, yeah. Well,
My
I
head bounced
remember.
off the windshield. Because in Michigan, you didn't have to wear seatbelts at the time.
the airbag comes out.
Right.
You hit the bag so hard.
I remember my question to her was, how do people get things?
Oh that is brilliant.
And because that was
How you did it. That's the only way you knew.
context. That was the only context I knew. And I probably knew people that bought cars with cash, but I didn't know that.
And they were weird.
Right.
If you'd have known them.
I mean, the concept of saving $15,000 or $20,000 at the time just seemed
That was like a year and a half of your dad's salary.
right. It was, not a year.
I know.
But,
I'm joking.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm not trying to be disrespectful, but that was a lot of money.
It was a lot of money, and I just didn't know that was a real thing.
And we're not saying that's exactly right or wrong, because everybody has to make their decisions, and credit can be helpful, but that probably blew your mind a little bit.
It did. And, and I had a good job. I mean, for,
Absolutely.
just
You
coming
could have
out of
bought
college.
2 cars and 2 boats.
Right. I mean, I don't mind sharing. You can share it or edit it, whatever. But, at the time right out of college, with a bachelor's degree, and I made $45,000.
Yikes.
Wow. That was good.
2000. This is the year 2000.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money.
But you're coming out with a good, solid, valuable chemistry degree, right? Tough.
Right.
And they needed those. So I get it.
Yeah. The
supply and demand,
industry
baby.
was hiring like crazy at the time. I mean, this is kind of a funny story. They offered me like 42 and I accepted. And they called me back like 3 days later and said, hey, we did a market salary study and we bumped your salary to 45. I'm like,
That's great.
best negotiator ever.
Coming from a small town, I know how to negotiate, right?
Right.
It's like-
Do you just look sad during I haven't eaten in weeks. Okay, we'll give you 45.
Right.
You're not paying for my parsonage? Come on.
I know.
Actually, probably both of our dads were sad, excited, but sad because they were probably making that at the time.
Or less.
Yes.
Or similar.
Yeah.
And it was like
Right.
really eye-opening for both of our parents.
But you really weren't ready. You just weren't ready to handle that kind of money.
Well, right.
I'm not saying it a bad
I only
way.
knew one way
Exactly.
of handling money, and this is one thing that we've talked about is I feel like education on how to have money work for you versus against you
Yes.
was not a thing in our high schools. It wasn't a thing in the college that we went to. I don't know if it is now.
I think it's still not a thing.
It's still
it
not.
needs to be. It's such a huge barrier, and like you guys have talked about, when you come out of college and you have student loans and a car payment and some credit card debt, you have to have a good job. You can't take a shot on a startup making very little money because you got all this debt.
No,
right?
you're right. You're absolutely right.
And so, for us getting married, it was like, okay, we have to make some decisions on how we're going to handle money.
So Sherry,
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah,
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I'm gonna do it.
we need the
Yeah,
now to the reality.
because there's there's two sides to every story, and I know the whole money thing because my story with my wife, she had credit card debt. I just about lost my
Yeah.
right?
Double toothpicks.
Toothpicks. Yeah, exactly. And so the story is very different. I was terrible about it because I was really mean, and I apologize for that. And anything she does bad to me, I always say I deserve it.
And by was, he means still is.
Right. What is
that why
it?
she's
15
not here?
years. Yeah, exactly. We keep her out of this. So can I get a little perspective from your side, how this whole thing unwound and what you saw and what happened? And
Yes. So I'm going to rewind.
we
a little
want you
bit.
guys to actually still be married when you leave, by the way. So
Oh,
we're
we're
going to be
good.
nice.
We'll
We're
edit
good.
you
We
back
just-
together if
We just
something happens.
celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Oh man, that's
So
great.
we're
dude.
good to
That's
go.
great. Dave's a solid guy. I really do like him. So
He
I
is.
prefer him not to
He's
go
a
through any
keeper.
bad stuff. Okay.
No, I'm going to go back to when he got his job and he got his new apartment. He, and you can edit this out later if you want to.
No,
But his
go ahead.
dad,
No, we like the juicy stuff.
His dad came in and pretty much pushed him into
I'm pouring some wine over here. I mean,
Pushed
this is an
him into
adult. What do you call
getting
it?
the
Kid show.
apartment that he did.
So dad
So-
helped him.
Yeah. So Dave was making $45,000, and his dad was like, "Hey, that's what I'm making, and I have this, this, and this, and this."
Oh, wow.
And so his dad comes in, and I mean, it's not a conversation. They just fall right into line, like they
always
like
have.
the money, financial. This is what we do. This
You have a
is how-
36-inch tube because you get one for $27 a week.
Yeah.
Right.
This is how you get things. You have a nice job. You need a nice apartment, 2 bedrooms in a nice apartment complex, and your apartment's going to be fully furnished before you get that first paycheck.
That was the scary part
So,
for me personally. and that's-
Immediately,
Stressful
he
living
is
up to that.
starting out with $45,000, and he's already in debt.
I hadn't get started yet. I hadn't no paycheck yet, right? And had fully furnished, went to whatever Value City.
IKEA, but whatever it was at
Furnished.
that time.
Yeah,
And-
furniture and
Art van.
art van probably, in Michigan. And bought couches and,
Oh, by the way, the job fell through.
yeah, right.
Because I lived with my parents, I was like, I can't afford to be on my own. So that's the tight one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would just say that.
And that was really hard for me to see that. And his dad is like, you need this, 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 this. And I'm like the angel on the shoulder, like,
So this is
No,
a quick commercial.
you don't need
Parents,
this.
don't do that to your kids. It doesn't need to be like that.
correct.
Well, unless you're buying it for them.
Right.
Like, Dad, you're checking that off the list.
You are so bad, man. Don't do that to your kids. They got to see the value of what they're doing.
Yes.
Oh, boy.
So you saw all this, and when you were watching this, was this kind of like slow-mo, just you can't keep your eyes off of it? You kind of like, what is happening? And I don't
Yeah,
mean it
it
in a
was
bad
really
way.
hard for me to watch. And we were already engaged at that point.
We were.
Is that right?
Oh, so you were signed up for half of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So his dad's like, you can afford twice as much?
Right.
Right.
And we're not beating on the dad because there's like so much you just get passed down that you just automatically.
Yeah, yeah. And, and again, I'll throw out there is a cycle. Like, my dad handled money better than his parents. That's probably a whole nother episode.
Yeah.
But, and he was the first of his, maybe still the only, my dad has 3 siblings. He was the only one to go to college,
Wow.
and the first in his family.
Kind of made it out if you
Right.
But going to college didn't mean you got taught anything about money.
Yeah, exactly. No.
It doesn't, right? And
There's some assumptions that go along with I graduated from college.
that's right.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. And so, Yeah. So Sherry was walking into this. With
So you're seeing this happening.
Experience.
And got a very different. So what happened? What'd you do? I mean, help me out here. Like you had to change this. All I know, and if you know me, which you don't, I am a straight shooter.
Oh God, he is.
Yeah, it's. I know it's like a yin yang. It's like good, but it's bad. So when I was talking to him, he was like, "Holy crap!" She whipped me into line. It was painful, but I have like so much gratitude for her for just being this amazing person who kind of showed me a little bit of light.
Oh, that's very sweet.
I know, I'm not
That's
kidding.
why we're married for 20 years. We balance each other out.
Exact words I used.
He's like, we're saving, we're doing this, we're doing that, and this is what I heard. None of it would have been possible without my wife. None of it. Is that an overstatement? Because that's what I heard.
No, I don't think that's an overstatement. Because, again, I didn't know there was another path. And, and Sherry only knew one path. And so it took us a while, and we did move to San Diego.
Was there frustration? Were there like fights? Because my wife and I had a little bit, but I was not kind. I admit it.
Yeah. I don't necessarily remember fights. I remember...
We call them discussions.
Yeah.
Robust discussions.
I remember, how are we going to do this? If this is the path we're going to go down, like how?
So the answer is, we're going to move to San Diego.
Yeah. Right. Great
the
choice,
most expensive city
Fresh
in the
start.
country.
Yeah. So that, Pfizer bought pharmacy in Upjohn. We had a couple places we could move. We were young and married, no kids.
I love that place.
San Diego.
I've lived there.
Yeah.
It's great.
And Pfizer paid for our
relocation and all that stuff.
Relocations. They bought our house from us
in Michigan.
And then they...
Did you guys have payments on the house too?
Oh, of course.
Of course. If you could see Dave right, I was like, I don't want to say anything.
And as soon as we were engaged, right, the house had to be bought next, right? Like,
so it wasn't even give us a breath.
That was the next step in line.
Wow.
Yeah, it was just like the expectation was, well, if you're going to be a chemist, if you're going to be a professional, you have to look like it. Yeah. And you have to get the nice car, and then you have to get the nice apartment.
This is before Zoom with the custom backgrounds where you could just make it look like it, right?
Yeah, just pretend.
For me, it was just the opposite. Like, I didn't know anything. You got to have a balance, right? Mine was like, this is a 12-year-old car. I borrowed the suit from my brother 7 years ago.
Still have those tennis shoes I used to wrestle in.
The ponies. We call them the red high-top ponies.
Yeah.
So you saw this and you just like, hey, let's go to San Diego. Makes financial sense? Or you just kind of like, hey.
Finances had nothing to do with that decision.
Okay.
Talking about 85 degrees every day.
Yeah. 72, technically.
Sorry. I was going to say June gloom.
Yes, it's a
and
real
May
thing.
Gray.
It's a real
They're like, I'm sorry about May Gray. I'm like, are you kidding me?
That's so funny because when we interviewed there, nothing but apologies. For
there were.
It was 73 degrees and people kept apologizing for the weather. And they're like, it's just so cloudy. And we literally drive a mile inland and it'd be perfectly sunny, have dinner, it's beautiful. And it was nonstop.
BMW convertible, and I was like, this is absolutely my ideal weather. There's like only 3 places on Earth that have that weather.
Right.
It has to do with like the way the wind blows from the west to the east. It's the, what do you call it? What is longitudinal, latitudinal, wherever position. It's just like, that place is amazing.
It is.
It is.
Anyway, so I digress.
So finances had nothing to do with it. We were going to have to move regardless. So we could... Ann Arbor, St. Louis, Missouri, or
San Diego.
Man,
that's a tough decision. That's really tough.
Good thing you went to college to figure that one out.
Right.
San Diego, St. Louis.
So for my family, we, at the time, we lived in Kalamazoo. That's where our house was.
Sure.
And what was that? An hour and 15 minutes away from my parents. I lived the farthest away from anybody in my family.
Ooh,
and it was
it
was a big deal for us to live there, let alone to go to San Diego. Like, I was like crushing my parents' dream.
Her parents didn't fly. Like, her dad had not been on an airplane since he got home from Vietnam. Her mom, I don't think ever had flown in her life. And so for us to move across the country, like there were some tears.
It was a big deal.
So you know what?
It was a big deal for us personally.
Yeah.
I mean, I never thought that I would move out of Michigan.
You know,
it was never even a thought.
You know what happened to us? My dad tried to get my mom to go somewhere. And she goes, I always got to keep one foot on the ground. Says, your son works at Tupperware. We'll put some dirt in that Tupperware and you can have 1 foot on the ground at all times. Sorry, go ahead. So you moved to San Diego.
So I guess like my contribution is just like pushing back on every decision. Like, hey, I want to get a new TV. We can afford this. We make a decent amount of money
Right.
together. Dave on his own, and then the little jobs that I had, and we're still living paycheck to paycheck. Like, it was.
How does that feel?
so
Does that feel just
stressful.
wonderful? Yeah, exactly.
Like I couldn't.
I'm not busting your chops.
No.
I'm just like, when I don't have like so much money like on the side, it makes me just stressed.
And that's, if I fast forward to today, so we've
very different.
been,
Frugal
debt-free,
and thoughtful.
other than our house for, probably a decade now.
Right.
And just that freedom and
How's it feel?
not
Amazing.
worrying about.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It's
Amazing.
It is. It's just so different than wondering, I need to look at my bank account to see if I can pay this bill. That was a stressful way to live. And, if something happened, like moving to San Diego and we had to pay, we had the crazy like $300 a month HOA, to mow our
Lawn.
14 square foot lawn, and
With the zoysia grass, it doesn't really need
With the
cutting.
zoysia, is that what it's called?
but it was just,
Great.
there are always things that came up. And when you're living paycheck to paycheck, it was like, well, I guess that goes on the visa.
Well, what's the number of people in the United States who can't afford a $400 emergency?
Literally like 70% of people or more.
It's some crazy number of people that can't afford $400 HVAC goes down or whatever.
I wouldn't be able to
Wow.
sleep, honestly.
he's-
I mean, oh my gosh, I lost a nickel. I'd be up for a week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was always me. So
It was really stressful. I would say
how many years?
10 years. We've been married 20, so I think about 10 years is how long it took for us to really make like the decisions. Like, we are absolutely not spending anything more on credit. And then
digging out of the hole.
So how'd you guys get there, though? Like, I mean, 10 years is kind of a long time. You saw the writing on the wall from, T-minus 2 years before that. You're like, my life's not going to be like this. But what?
Unfortunately, my parents also saw the writing on the wall, and them saving as much as they did. Like, growing up, we did not have a lot of money, and they were stressed because they didn't have the cash, but somehow they saved through all of that. And I don't really know even to this day how, and now my parents they still have no debt of any kind, and they are very generous people. And so at that time, I think maybe for our 10th anniversary, they gave us $10,000. And
$1,000 for every year. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom and Dad, just had my 32nd anniversary. $32,000. I'll do the math for you.
Right.
now we did just celebrate our 20th, and we didn't get $20,000 from them, which we were not expecting that. But they did send us a decent amount that we were
So
just still blessed by. And I mean, we have money in our savings account. We're doing well, comfortable. Like,
things are going good.
The joy of life can just happen naturally.
Right.
But like them still being generous is still it still hits you. It still hits me. Like, that is amazing that they can do that and still impact us.
Yeah. They were very
in that way.
disciplined throughout their life, right?
It's all about behaviors.
And, and now they get to do what they want with their money.
Yeah.
And
your guys are so grateful and gracious about it too. You know what I mean? And I remember it's actually a funny story. So Christy's mom and her biological father died a long time ago. So her stepfather, they said, you guys have never asked for anything. And I'm like, I don't ask for stuff. She goes, would you please take this money? And it was like so wonderful. They were so happy about it.
I could see Ben with that, like, going, I got to pretend for a minute that I don't want it, but I don't want to pretend so well that they don't give it to me.
Right, exactly. Write the check now and I'll be fine. No, but
I won't cash it till tomorrow.
But that's great. But they probably didn't want to give it to you at year 1 or 2 because you're still trying.
They don't know about this guy. They're just going to leverage it up.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a long process, and there was student debt, and then of course, 6 years into our marriage, I quit my job and went back to school to get an MBA. So, and we had all that planned out, right? We were going to sell our house in California. That Pfizer had subsidized the mortgage for 3 years.
Ooh, nice.
We lived there for 3 years, and we're going to sell that. The market in 2006.
Oh, right before the crash. That's gonna be
right to go.
So we were going to make $150,000 on our house, right?
Nah, cha-ching.
And you're going to pay for school and living expenses, all of that.
You.
Well, then the market started to come back to life or back to reality a little bit. So we still made
decent
probably
money.
$75,000 on the house,
Sure.
but not $150,000. And I'd given up my job.
Sure.
Honey, we should borrow some money.
Yeah. So we had
to. Because there was no money to live on.
It's like we had dug ourselves out of a hole
in California. So we were paying the full amount.
Oh,
because Pfizer's not subsidized.
Yeah, subsidy's gone.
Ouch. Whew. I get it.
With no
that
income.
was the hardest, roughest time.
There's a sound that goes along with that. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah. So we had kind of dug ourselves out of a hole.
About 6 or 10 years in?
About 6 years in. Then, when I
But you got lucky a couple times, right? I mean, like with J&J, it was J&J Upjohn with Pfizer.
Pharmacia,
Pfizer.
Right.
Okay, sorry. But you got a little bit lucky, right? Because they got bought out. They take you down there. You got to this place that you could have the real estate grow. But that's the key, is to really take advantage of those opportunities and to continue the learning to increase your earning ability. Very big stuff.
Yeah.
So
we were taking the opportunity and enjoying it to the fullest, but we were not taking advantage of the opportunity.
But it turned into a great financial opportunity because it got you this place where your house grew substantially more than what your mortgage was. So you did some really good stuff. Wow. So I know we're getting pretty far into it, and I swore that I would get you out of here at a particular time.
Yeah, that's all right.
But what are some drops of wisdom that 20 years in and completely different people in regards to how you looked at money early on? Any pieces of wisdom that you can kind of share with us? Can't do it all in one night. It took you a little time.
Yeah.
You still struggle with it, but you have a couple of interesting tips.
If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody.
Happy wife, happy life, baby.
I think one of the things that I try to teach our kids is, interest works for you or it works against you.
Oh, nice.
And
that's easy.
There's no middle ground there. It's either working for you or against you. And so if you buy something with a credit card, whatever you bought is going to cost way more than what you paid for it, what you think you paid for it, if you don't pay that credit card bill. And the same with a car or a boat or an RV, whatever you think, you're buying.
Yep.
I would say the one exception is a house where the value will grow over time, and that's what I feel like the biggest setback for my parents, was when my dad moved after 23 years at the first church. He had nothing. He walked away with there's
no equity
growth.
Because you're pushing, if you're at a 30-year mortgage, you could have the whole thing paid off.
Yeah, he would have been almost done, right? So interest, that's the thing.
I do like the interest works for you or against you, because I keep thinking of
It does.
you probably in
It's
your
easy.
MBA, the more advanced stuff like arbitrage.
right.
Love arbitrage.
I love arbitrage. And it's like, well, it's kind of a weird concept, but you're using somebody else's interest to make you more interested. So maybe it's working for you in a sense.
Right.
And what we
Right.
refer to it on the show a lot is good credit and bad credit.
Yeah.
Like bad credit is stuff that doesn't grow to earn you more money over and above the interest that you pay.
Right.
And good credit is like you buy an apartment complex and you have to pay 6%, but you're earning 22%.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
Good versus bad. But I love it. It works for you or against you. It's
Yeah.
so simple.
I mean, for our kids, you know, it's a simple enough concept
yes.
that, you know, I hope that when they get out of our house, they go to college, you know, they understand.
Kicking them out at age 16,
Right.
they better study hard.
14.
Right.
14.
You know, like when they go to college and there's that booth there with a Visa card.
Hey,
and
get
it
your
says,
credit card. Yeah.
You know, or go to the mall or Kohl's, right?
Yeah.
You know, and they say, hey, would you like to save 10%? Well, what's that 10% going to cost you?
25%.
I don't care.
And, you know, so I hope that I hope to instill that in them as just a baseline principle.
And you know, the one thing that we talk about a lot is kids aren't stupid.
Right.
They see what you do.
Yeah.
They're going to see that, you know, Dave, you know, you got probably some bad habits that they see, but they know that you're working on it. They know that you're working on it, and they know that mom and you together are making a lot of good decisions, right? So the thing is that even though you say, hey, do what I say, they're going to know and take the
I love
lead.
that saying, do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
I grew up with that.
Yeah.
And so I know some of my messages are a little confusing for my kids. I get it, but most of them are consistent. And that's a big part of it. So that's just so weird when I heard that you both were pastors and you came at it from completely different paths. I just like, this is almost, what is it in science where you have like the control group and the whatever? It's like
The placebo.
yeah, it's like, oh
Double
my
blind.
gosh, the
Right.
double blind.
Yeah.
It's like the control group is
Right.
spends a lot of money and don't, and let's see how they diverge. And it was just pretty cool to hear that.
It is. It is. It is kind of a interesting case
So
study.
they proved that hormones are stronger than interest rates.
Hormones are either working for you or working against you.
Right. Right.
But from that perspective, you know, that's pretty awesome. And anything you want to say, Sherry?
Yeah, I think just in general, you know, coming from my parents' perspective, just being generous, like it brings them joy. It
Amen.
would bring us
It
joy
really does.
to receive it. And like we try to be generous on different levels.
Sure.
At different times. And we want our kids to know like that's important. And you can't do that if you are constantly thinking in the moment and about yourself and what you
Right.
want.
And living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
Right.
We
You
talk a
can't do
lot
that.
about financial independence and how that's actually different for every person. Some people just
Yes.
think that's, hey, I can take a vacation and not worry about it. Other people say, hey, I want to retire at 55. But in some respects, I find part of financial independence is being able to give in a way that's really meaningful for me, both from a charity perspective or a charitable perspective, but also to my kids, you know, because it's kind of fun, man. My parents, when they gave me $50, I just about died.
Yeah. Right.
Because they didn't have a lot and it meant a lot to me. But, you know, if you do something pretty substantial, help them buy their first car or whatever, that's, oh, man.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. Wow. Well, thanks for being here. I'm sure you guys are going, oh my gosh, it's going to be an hour and it's going to be so tough. But after you started to relax, your first question, how you doing? Good.
I think it was great.
We're in a great, that's right.
Yeah.
It was a G
Great.
word. Yeah.
Right.
But we really appreciate you guys being here and giving us a little bit of insight. And maybe we get you back and you guys think a little bit more and can share some more other insights. We really appreciate it. So
Thank you for having
Anytime.
us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
I appreciate it.
And we'll talk to you soon. Bye. Cheers.